Welcome back to Foster Care, an Unparalleled Journey with Jason and Amanda Palmer, where our mission is providing strength to the weakest among us, from both kids in foster care and their biological families. We also talk about topics that affect all children and families. It is our hope that we can inspire you to become the best bio, step, foster, adoptive, or whatever kind of mom or dad that you can be. Part of our mission is inspiring others to become amazing foster families as well, if that is your calling. If it's not your calling, great. Find a thing that sets your soul on fire and go be awesome at that. Let's make our communities great together. Be sure to go by Jason M. Palmer and check out the blog post and other podcast episodes. You can search Jason and Amanda Palmer on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, or anywhere else you get your podcast. If we don't show up, be sure to send me an email and let me know, and I will try to get it on there. We'd love to have you leave us some feedback in the form of a rating and review. It really helps the show gain attention. Hello, and welcome back to
Foster Care, an Unparalleled Journey
with Jason
and Amanda.
And today we have Sean with us. Sean and his wife Charlene are adoptive parents. Sean is a student of life, and I met him in a group we're in together called the Dad Edge Alliance. Sean is part of the Dad Edge leadership there, and a self-prescribed California surfer dude. We came in, we got together and talking about foster care and adoption, and I found out that he had adopted a daughter and had a story to tell about that. That's one of the things that we really like to talk about over here is the story behind the adoption, because adoption is not the same for any two people. And Sean's story is definitely different. Fortunately, Charlene couldn't be with us today. She's out having fun in Las Vegas. So we are just going to be sitting here with us and him today talking. How are you doing today, Sean?
Doing good, thanks. Yourselves?
Oh, man. If we were any finer, we'd be frog hair.
Right on.
At least that's what an old man told me once, and I like to just go with that. It feels good. I'm
going to roll with that as a good thing.
Frog hair is mighty fine, I'm told. Although, for being a little boy once, I was never one to mess with frogs. They always wanted to pee on me.
I remember catching them, but that's about all.
My mom used to always tell us we get warts, and that had me terrified as a kid. I was going to be the kid with a handful of warts. Oh, man, the things we learned in our childhood.
Oh, yeah. And now we get to pass on and warp our little kids' minds. Oh, yes.
Amen. So I met you in the Dad Edge group and found out that you guys had adopted your daughter. And we were talking, and you told me that, because the big question I like to ask people is why? Like, what's your reason for wanting to do foster care or adoption? Because I think most people have this idea in their head that somehow or another, there's some kind of money involved in both of those. And where there is money involved in both of those, it's usually money going the opposite direction as to what most people think. I don't know. You live in San Diego, California, right?
Correct.
I don't know what the foster care reimbursement rates are in San Diego. I promise you they are higher than they are in Missouri. Because in the great state of Missouri, we are ranked either 49th or 50th. I think we're the lowest or second lowest state in the nation as far as how much they reimburse you for the cost of fostering a child. So if you're trying to foster kids for money in Missouri, you are doing it all wrong, I promise. You have to do it for the love of it. And if you're adopting a kid, the amount of money that takes over time, that's crazy. My wife and I looked at adopting doing an international adoption at one point, and wow, I was shocked at the amount of money that was going to cost us. It was close to $30,000 at the time for the ones we looked at, and I don't know what it is today, but I know that you and your wife adopted your daughter through a private agency, and I bet you they didn't pay you a whole lot of money to do it.
Wow. In fact, they didn't pay us anything. As you mentioned earlier, it went right out the other way. And we had, and I'll add to that, we were rather fortunate in we met a few people around the same time that adopted children right around the same time we did. And some of those were international adoptions. And in fact, one of them was a Russian adoption that didn't happen because it got cut off due to the political circumstances. This is about 7, 8 years ago. And
Wow.
they lost a lot of money when that occurred.
Well, I bet. So if they're not paying you to do it, why in the world did you want to do
it? The short answer is my wife and I wanted to have kids, and we were unable. We went down the fertility path, and after about, a number of years, I think we were almost 5 years down the fertility path, and nothing worked out for us. My wife had 5 pregnancies during that process, and we lost 8 little souls. So
Wow.
That was, it was hard. It was hard. That was when we turned to adoption. Although there's a neat story behind that, because while we were in the fertility process towards what became the end, we were just flipping through the TV channels one night and came across A Home for the Holidays. That's like a light bulb going off. I mean, that was just amazing. She's crying. I'm crying. I think there were millions of people crying watching that show. And that really opened our eyes to the possibility of adoption.
Now, that's a movie put out by the Dave Thomas Foundation, isn't it?
Correct. It's a holiday special by the Dave Thomas Foundation. It's a tearjerker. Cannot recommend, if you're looking at that, getting involved, reaching out to them. Just a fantastic organization. But that was I would say our tipping point, really, to look towards adoption. And it opened our eyes and realizing how much adoption had touched our lives without us recognizing that.
That's very true. That's one of the things that surprised me. And the Dad Edge Alliance is a group on Facebook and that we're in. And there's a lot of guys that I've connected with in there who, when I put a single post up about guys whose lives have been touched by foster care adoption, I was amazed at the number of guys who reached out to me and said things like, either they were adopted, they had adopted a child, they had been in foster care, or they did foster care. I would be surprised if most people don't know at least one person whose life is touched with that in their personal lives.
I think you're spot on. The statistics I've heard is 1 in 4.
Wow.
I don't really have anything to base that on. It's been thrown around a lot, but I can believe that. Just when your eyes are opened, you become aware. And once you become aware of something, you can't stop seeing it.
Yeah, that's 100%. Once you figure out how much it's out there, everybody starts talking. And, once a conversation opens up, it's amazing how many people have been affected by it. I'm also surprised at how many people look at it and think it's impossible, think it's not a real thing that's going to affect their life, and choose to kind of just to walk without looking into it and understanding that they could do it. I've known a lot of people who maybe thought that, like we did when I first had looked at adoption. When our second son was born, my wife hemorrhaged really bad, and the doctor in his thick Russian accent said basically something about doing a partial hysterectomy because she had a floppy uterus or she might die. And so the answer was pretty clear. Do what you got to do, doc. Keep her alive. But, we couldn't have kids after that. And my wife is the type who would have had a dozen kids if she could have. And so we had eventually kind of looked at adoption, and I was really discouraged when I looked up, because at the time, this is when China still had the one-child policy in effect, and the plight of Chinese girls was pretty tear-jerking to be able to look at that and go, okay, well, let's look at this. And we got to look at it and went, oh, you need $30,000. I can't do that. I don't have $30,000 laying around. At the time, we hadn't been together that awful long, at least not long enough to be really financially stable. We were young and we were keeping our head above water, but that was about the size of it. And to find out that all these kids are in foster care, and the number of kids who are in foster care who are legally available for adoption, and then to find out, I don't know how it is in California, in the state of Missouri, if you adopt through foster care, they cover almost all the cost. It costs you basically nothing. I was like, oh, well, now I can handle that cost. We could reach out and help a kid with that, but I can't help a kid if I need $30,000 to do it.
Yeah, we came to the conclusion that I'll probably just back up and get specific. On my wife's third pregnancy, that was a real tipping point for us. Again, I think adoption, we were looking at it at that point. And we went in for her checkup about 16 weeks. And no one said anything. It was kind of weird. No one really said anything. There were some heartbeats and all of that. Then we're let in, hey, we need to talk to somebody. We have an appointment, on and on and on. This geneticist walks in, and Australian bloke. And we had been warned that he could be kind of direct sometimes. But he walks in, he doesn't sit back behind the desk. He sits right on the desks and kind of looks at us. And he just says, I'm going to do a bad accent here. He's all, I don't know how to tell you this. I don't have any good news for you. That really changed our directory on everything. We had some difficult decisions to make after that. And we had one more embryo that had been frozen during this fertility process. So I'm just going to be open. We prayed about it. We talked about it. We talked to friends, family, our pastor, and we decided to give it one more choice. Well, it turns out that one more choice wasn't for us either. And the fertility doctor came in and said, hey, I want you to at least take a break or start rethinking what you're doing. My wife's body had been pretty much wrecked. The drugs, she'd blown up 40 pounds. She wasn't feeling good about herself. She was tired. She'd had a few too many surgeries through the process. So it was time to move on. And again, going back, our mind had been open to adoption. So we decided to go that route. But she asked me specifically to take the lead because she was just too beat down. She had really led the process in the fertility, and she was just worn out. But we both still had this incredible desire to be parents. So I made that phone call to our to our child services here for adoption and foster care in San Diego. And I remember so distinctly this call because I don't know anything about it. And this is the first step of the whole process. And I'm talking to her name is Julie. I am never going to forget that. And she was a counselor, social worker. She just happened to be the one that picked up the phone when I called. And she was asking about us. Why did we want to be parents? Why did we think we could get involved with the foster system? Why did we think we wanted to adopt? What was our reasoning behind it? Now, our hearts were in shreds and we just wanted to be parents. So much so. Sometimes it's really tough to believe that, like, I really wanted to be a parent that much, when you sorry.
I have 7. I know the struggle some days.
We all have those days where you're going, I did what for this? And then they look up at you and they say, I love you, and give you a big hug, and whew, everything else disappears. But at that time, Julie and I were talking, and I explained our situation. And I don't know what, we just sort of connected. And she actually was telling me a story, and I could hear her kind of breaking up, getting emotional. And she literally came out and said, I wish that you two were approved and ready to go because I would want to place this girl with you. So this little girl, 4 years old, what had happened, her father he was in the military and he'd been killed in action a couple weeks prior. Her mother and the rest of her family had just been in an accident the night before, and there was no one left for her.
Oh, wow.
So, sorry, I'm breaking up remembering this. It's that raw. That was when I realized that the foster system and the adoption, these kids need parents that want to be parents.
Yes.
You know, now the heart-wrenching story was when I talked to Julie again about getting into the specifics and setting up to do the meets and getting the whole process working. She told us, and I'm going to quote her because it's really easy. She said, if there's any way you can do it, go private adoption, because you will be the last people on our list who's going to get selected.
Why is that?
She didn't really say directly, but the ranking they had, and I'm just going to go out and say you can't be PC when it comes to foster care and adoption. If you want to be that parent, you got to step out and you got to make some tough decisions and make some difficult calls. And you got to look inward as to why you're doing this. What do you want? I'm also going to jump ahead and say, you also got to think about the child and how it's going to fit into the people in your life. You know, that may be other family members, it may be close friends, because your community, it's not just you and this child. You're bringing a child into a bigger community, and you got to think about them. So that child becomes number one, right? It just had to do with the criteria at the time that we would be unlikely. With that, we've been on this roller coaster of fertility for a number of years, and now we get this. We just our hearts were broken, but we don't give up. My wife and I, that's one of the things I love about her. She never gives up. I don't give up. So we started looking at private adoption, and that's when we made that decision to look into those options.
Wow. That sounds like quite a story just to walk through alone. The private adoption journey that's something we don't know anything about. We've never looked at the private adoption side of things. We've only dealt with our local foster care and foster care system, and the 4 kids that we've adopted came through the foster care system. So that's the only side we really know anything about. What was that like to step into the private adoption arena?
Well, I guess the first thing is you have to realize that the same sort of process occurs in both the public and the private. It's just the order of things may not be the same. You know, you still got to have your home checkups. You still got to have your backgrounds done and things like that. But it may not happen in that same, everything else may not happen in that same order. The child being placed, a reclaim period, the adoption, those things sort of occur differently. And it varies by state. That's what's so amazing. You have adoption-friendly states, and you have other states that really are not so friendly. Florida, Texas, California are actually pretty adoption-friendly. There's some others that it's virtually impossible to adopt. A couple of Midwestern states, which is interesting. But each state has their own thing. That being said, I like the way this nurse in Baltimore put it, whose family was looking to adopt the same time we were with the same agency. She said, "You're buying a car." It's just it just depends on what kind of car you're going to buy. You know, are you getting a Toyota? Are you buying a Mercedes? Or are you buying something bigger? Because you're buying a car through this adoption process.
Wow, that's an interesting way to look at it.
I love the way she put it. She just summed it up so well. My wife sometimes gets ticked off when people say, how does fertility work? And I said, great. It's like buying a Ferrari, driving it off the lot. It gets totaled. Then you realize you don't have insurance. Welcome to the fertility game. Now you've got adoption. You're going to buy another car right after that. But you don't know what kind of car sometimes. So the first process, I guess, beginning with someone to represent you, whether it's an agency or an attorney group for the adoption. There's networks out there, and they want to put you in touch with women and young ladies that are ready to offer their child to a family that wants that child. And I'm very specific. I'm not saying give up that child, because this is the greatest gift that anyone can possibly ever give somebody.
Yeah, it's the ultimate sacrifice.
Exactly. So it really, and maybe it's just my pet peeve, but I hate it when people say, oh, someone was given up for adoption or something like that. That's just not right. This is the ultimate, it's just such an incredible gift. But that being said, the process, if I shorten this out, is, my wife and I had to create a profile and literally create a brochure to market ourselves as potential parents to, and I'm going to break this down as it's explained to us, to a 16-year-old with an 8th grade education that had an oops moment.
Well, I guess that's one way to look at it. That's a tough perspective to try and get into.
Yeah, I don't, it's like I said, you can't be PC about this. So what you're doing with this profile too is, who are we? Who is Sean and Charlene? What do we do? Where do we live? And this is on top of all the other things that you go through to get approved by the state.
Right now,
where they do their background check.
You're selling yourself
I'm
to
sorry.
somebody. You got to sell it, and that's got to be really difficult.
You're almost your own marketing agent there.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, that's why you go through an agency. So these agencies, basically, they're trying to match people up. And it's interesting because the agencies, they want to have a high success rate. So they've got their, they know who their market is. So they want to make sure they get people that fit in their market. So in fact, one of the top rated agencies, in California, and one that was recommended to us personally by a couple people had gone through, they didn't want anything to do with us. And everyone was shocked.
Yeah. I mean, well, did they give you a reasoning?
Never gave us a reason. It was almost to the point of, when we tried to talk to them, it was almost to the point of rudeness. And, at first you get upset, right? Because it's like, what's going on? We seem like we'd be okay. But then you realize maybe we didn't fit the profile. Okay. My wife's a redhead. When I had hair, I was a redhead too. Maybe they don't deal with redheads, and that's okay. It's just their thing. They know their market. But one of the things that I did was I actually went online and pretended to be a 16-year-old girl that was pregnant. I don't know if I did very well, but I was able to find a lot of agencies that way.
Oh, wow. That's an interesting way to approach it. I would not have thought of that. I can only imagine they were a little bit disappointed when they saw your picture, though.
Yeah, I don't think I look that good there.
As 16-year-old girls go, you're kind of ugly, man. No offense, but
none taken. Like I said, you can't be PC with this stuff. Just doesn't work. Well, what that did was that gave me a lot of different agencies to look at. And by then you start coming up with the same ones, and talking to people in different groups, talking with our church, selectively at work, but just getting the word out and what was going on. And then recommendations started happening. But again, you're trying to find an agency that's going to represent you to a market where you're going to have success. Because obviously the agency wants to keep their high success rate, and you want to have success. Because by the time you're into this, you're going to be at least $30,000 down the hole, if not more.
Wow.
For a chance to do, for a chance at nothing. That's not guaranteed.
Wow. And I thought my $30,000 to looking at Chinese girls was a lot of money.
In fact, another couple, our daughters are best friends. They're more like siblings than anything else. This is funny. Born 2 weeks apart, both adopted. The other family went down the route with a Russian adoption. They had gone to Russia, come back, and were to go pick up the child when they were told everything was off. At that point, they had well over $50,000 invested in this whole process, plus travel.
That's amazing. Wow.
That's all because of geopolitics.
Correct.
Wow. It's amazing how much the things that do affect it. You're looking at things like the political state of U.S. versus whatever country you're looking at, and all the different pieces that you can't have no control over.
There's so many different pieces. It's amazing, which is also why the agencies are so important, or the adoption attorneys. They have associations, and they've got their contacts and everything they work with. Unlike, again, the foster care kind of get what they get, is my understanding, and it works from there. These agencies, it's sort of the same thing, but again, they're going out and they're marketing to these ladies, these young girls that have gotten pregnant, to work with them.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, so what was it like for you guys, when you finally found the agency that was able to start placing you?
It was really neat. We narrowed down to about 2 agencies pretty quickly. And again, some profiles we didn't fit, just some, it's like shopping for anything. Some didn't really gel with us. And what the tipping point was just talking to the caseworkers at the agency. We connected. We hit a stride. We had this, that was the best thing. We had this connection, and it worked. My wife felt comfortable. She felt happy. As she put it, she just wanted some hand holding because of everything else we'd been through. And she got the hand holding. So that was really a wonderful step when we connected. Now, when we got the contract, that was good and fine and very well until he got to that bottom line where you got to write the check. And then it was, fill in your expletive there.
I can only imagine.
Yeah. But what was neat is, these people are professionals, right? We're only doing this once in our life, maybe twice if we're lucky. But these people, they live in it. So you got to trust the professionals here. And they walked us through what we needed to do. We needed to get a profile. We have a brochure. It's about 8 pages of us and who we are, where we live, what we do. It's not super specific on where you live. So it's kind of hard to go back to you, but it's a glossy brochure. So, you can say, hey, take a look at me. At the time, videos were just starting to happen. I remember looking at the videos, and all of the couples were basically sitting on a couch and talking. And that was fine because you got a feel for them, but that's not who my wife and I are. So we just started collecting videos from our phones of everything from us driving in the cars at Disneyland to walking on the beach to, I think there's even one where I'm rolling my eyes at her because she's complaining about my music's too loud or something.
Now, a few years from now, when your daughter brings that up about eyes rolling because the music's too loud.
Guilty. And that already happens on occasion. I
own a teenager, and his room is directly above this office. And more times than I can count, I've been down here trying to record something, and I'm sitting here texting him, turn it down. I can hear your music in my microphone a floor below you.
That is true.
I mean, my daughter's only 6, but it's like there's a time and a place for everything. It's called college. You're not there yet.
That's right. When the campus police come tell you to turn it down, then you have to listen. Here.
Yeah, a little different.
Yeah.
How long did this process take for you guys?
Now, Oh boy. We were about 22 months before we were placed. Uh, most most of the time, it's usually about 18 months. And I bring that up for a reason because this is something we learned early on about how, and I'm just going to say messed up this process can be. Right? Fingerprinting. Everyone's got to be fingerprinted for that background check.
Yep.
Now, that's one of the things that gets done in the private adoption after you've pretty much started your marketing campaign, right? You want to get that going at least at the same time or ahead of time because that takes a lot of time. Getting the background check, you got to do the information, fill out the forms, get your fingerprints. Well, fingerprints in California are only good for 12 months. The average placement is 18 months. So, we don't have to be math wizards here to figure out that this really isn't good. Then you tack on that the average background check and getting the preparation is somewhere between 3 and 6 months for most people. So no matter what you do, you're stuck getting fingerprinted at least twice. Now, that doesn't sound quite so bad because that's survivable. But in our county, the county didn't talk to the feds and the feds didn't talk to the state. So none of them accepted each other's fingerprints. So what that means is
easy, right?
Yeah. So you go into live scan and they end up billing you 3 times, but they only have to scan you once because they send them off in the different directions and the different forms.
Yes, I understand the struggle.
It's just really? I mean, that's the process in a nutshell. We haven't gotten into the interesting stuff, and that's where you begin.
All right, everybody's going to make their dollar.
You start doing everything in triplicate. It reminds me of the old school military.
Hurry up and wait.
Yep, everything's done in triplicate. And and we're going to use carbon paper for it, too, just to make it more challenging for you.
Oh, that's it. But I'll tell you, this process, once we got rolling, it was the toughest part was waiting. Because you've got your brochure, it's out. You've got your background check, that's out. Your challenge is really, what are you going to do? Because this is where individuals really learn who they are, because you want that child so bad. You want to be a parent so bad, but there's nothing you can do. So I want to give incredible kudos to a lot of the agencies out there that provide support during that time. And a lot of it revolved around things to be good parents, because it's coming up, things you could learn that you may not know. But a big bulk of it was keeping yourself active and busy during that wait. Because if you can imagine, if you're focusing on nothing but I'm not getting any activity on my profiles, it's harsh. That's a big downer. That could really lead to some, you can have some negative feelings. It's a sad situation. Likewise, if you're keeping busy with that on the positive aspect of everything coming up, I mean, not only are you going to connect with people that are in basically the same boat as you are, you're going to meet new people, but you're also going to learn something about what's coming up for you. And I'm convinced now that no one can tell you what it's like to be a parent until you are one, but at least you have an inkling of what's coming forward.
Well, Sean, it sounds like the journey is a real challenging place. Did you find any good resources or people or groups to be in along the way?
Well, this was, it was kind of funny because the good agencies actually put people together that are going through the process. And I can't speak for the foster systems, but there's definite support groups through the agencies. So my wife and I were literally on a weekly call. And we'd have a webinar at least once a month. Again, this is a few years back. What it really did was it connected us and realized that we're not alone in this journey. And we met some incredible people. And what was so cool about some of it was, my wife and I are from Southern California. We own it. We revel in it. We'll take the abuse that comes with that. And we both grew up in the beach areas. So take it for what it's worth. But we got to connect with people that we would otherwise never, ever run across in our lives. Like, I remember with, this is going to sound crazy, talking with a pig farmer from Iowa. I freaking love this guy and his wife. And I prayed for them to be connected with a child, to get matched up so much. I would just never, ever, I mean, it just, they would never cross our paths. We would never cross theirs, but we had that connection. And I think that's what was so wonderful and kept us sane through this whole process. Because all you're hoping at this is to get matched up with someone that, again, wants you to be the parents of the child that they're going to give birth to.
That's heavy. That's real heavy, figuring out how to be matched up with a person and a child, and to gain that trust and respect from another person.
Well, it's difficult because most of the parents, again, there's some reason behind why we're going to the adoption, and in some cases the foster route. Why are we doing it? In our case, it was the fertility issues. In a lot of cases, it was fertility issues. In 2 cases that we know about, it was because of actually mental issues. The potential mothers were concerned about the struggles with postpartum depression. They had gone through depressive episodes before, and they were concerned what would happen. So they didn't want to put a family through that.
Wow.
So it's not about, I think the big thing about both foster parents and adoptive parents share this, that it's not about, I should preface that, the good ones, it's not about wanting something, it's about giving something. You don't want to have something, you want to give something. Yes, we want a family, but we want to give a child an opportunity to have a life that they otherwise wouldn't have.
I saw a quote the other day that was posted online. It was something along the lines of, it's not about trying to get a child, but it's about giving your family to a child.
Bingo. That is beautiful. That is beautiful.
I think it's something my wife found, and actually Amanda put it on her Facebook page because, my goodness, she's good at that stuff. If you go to our Facebook page and you see something posted on there, 9 times out of 10 or more, it's her who posted it because she's the one who finds that stuff. I'm not that good at it, but I read that one and I thought, wow, it's not that different of a thing to say in verbs, but in meaning, it's a whole different world.
It's a completely different mindset that a lot of people do not get. They just don't grasp it. They don't think about it. But just changing a few words around, it just changes the entire meaning.
Exactly. And it is a different mindset. Now, my family's actually from Hawaii, and there's a huge tradition of adoption in Hawaii, where an adoptive family would actually consider that child to be above the others. I know that sounds kind of strange, but that's a heavy tradition. And can I be a little non-PC here?
Oh, I guess we'll let you.
Okay. So part of this process when you're going through an adoption is you get to choose, or have to choose, is probably a better word to use, what kind of child you're willing to accept.
Yeah.
And this is a gut wrencher. For a whole host of reasons. And no judgment. Please do not attach any judgment to anybody or the process. But it goes from what child, the age of the child that you're willing to accept. What race or nationality are you willing to accept? What drug use, type and quantity on the part of the mother before getting pregnant and after getting pregnant are you willing to accept? What physical limitations of the child are you willing to accept? These are hard questions. And you don't get to put in everything.
Yeah. You have to really think of that too. I mean, that's a tough one. I know in the foster care system, we were asked if they,
We were asked similar questions.
Yeah, similar
age
questions.
And race and medical issues and different traumas.
But I think they gave us the option. I mean, for us, we said basically, we'll accept whatever we can, whatever we can handle, speaking medical wise, a kid that requires 24-hour care, who's on a feeding tube, who needs specialized treatment. We weren't at a place where we felt like we could handle that, safety wise for the well-being of the kid. But other than that, we were pretty wide open. We've really learned to kind of hone our age range down to kids who are the age of our youngest or younger, just because that seems to fit in our family better. But that's, this is foster care. These kids tend to show up and they hang out with us for a while. Whatever that means, a night to a year and a half, 2 years. But a lifetime choice, that's a big step to take.
It's a big step. And it's the same process. What are we capable of doing? And we're always capable of more than we think. But again, it's not just about us and the child. It's family, extended family, the community we live in. How is that child going to fit in? It's a terrible thing to think about, because we may think everybody is open and we're good with everything, but others may not.
Well, that's the thing. You still have to do ultimately what is best for that child.
Exactly.
It's not about
the
you.
child.
It's everything about them. It's their life that will be shaped forever.
The child has to come first, and that is sometimes what makes this so difficult. And then you go from this gut-wrenching process and questioning to the waiting. How long are you going to wait? How long are you going to do things? But then there's this really cool thing that happens for adoptive parents. You get the matchup. That's where you're matched. This is where you get a call from the agency or a text or something that says, hey, we've got someone that's interested in you. And oh my gosh, you don't think your heart could explode any bigger than it does. I mean, I remember exactly where my wife and I were. I remember exactly the time. I can tell you the color of the room and the color of the bed sheets and the furniture and the carpet, and because we were in a hotel, which is really kind of scary, but that's how big of a thing it is. And it's just an amazing thing when you are matched up, and then you get to meet or you get to talk over the phone with your potential birth mother. That's what's amazing. And if all goes well, you're the one. Because again, go back to that hypothetical person you're marketing to. This is a 16-year-old girl that got caught in an oops, and her family may or may not know about this in some cases. Right?
Yeah.
You're looking at her to help you complete your family. Right? Or I shouldn't even say complete, because we're complete as a family, a husband and wife, but it's just a totally different world once you have children. I mean, it's it's fantastic. Most of the time.
It adds harmony to the melody.
I like that. Harmony to the melody.
Harmony to the melody. It really is. So that's what's interesting. And then actually meeting them for the first time. The nervousness,
I was going to ask how that, I could only imagine being a bundle of nerves and just wanting to sell yourself so that you're that one, and, second guessing everything and every movement, and that had to be pretty stressful.
Oh, absolutely. I think I think we discussed, we were concerned about what are we going to wear?
Yeah. If I choose an orange shirt, if she doesn't like orange, everything.
Oh, yeah. Like, in fact, we know a family that adopted a beautiful little boy. He's quite the football player. And the birth mother chose them because mom was barefoot with a Jack Daniels t-shirt in one of their profile pictures.
There you go.
I mean,
okay.
Yeah, that sounds like a reasonable reason to make a choice that big.
Ours was because of music And that's a big thing with us. We have music in the household, and I'll just say it, our religion. Those were the the top two drivers for her decision. She liked where we lived. There were a couple things in our case, but it's going to vary by as many people as there are in this process. And I'm going to, our meeting could be a whole 3-hour interview. So that's a different animal.
We can always come back and do again, though. We can do a continuation.
Oh, I want my wife for that one.
I was going to say, I would love to meet your wife. She sounds like an amazing woman.
Oh, she is. She is. She puts up with me too. I don't know why.
I know the feeling.
But here's what's really cool. We were actually at the hospital when my daughter was born. My wife was in the delivery room.
Oh, wow.
And I was the guy under the, heat lamp stolen from McDonald's that kept her warm, in between the nurses doing all sorts of whatever the nurses do to newborns on their first day. That was incredible. And leaving the hospital with her was just the most incredible feeling. Now, in most states, they have what's called a reclaim period. In California, it was 30 days, but it could be waived down to 24 hours or 72 hours. But those were business hours. So now you've brought this child home, and you've got this mental thing going on that the mom can reclaim her, and we're going to have to give her up.
Right.
Right. Again, that varies by state. That's a whole other roller coaster. It's just, and in our case, it turned out to be 5:00 on a Tuesday when that happened. And our neighbors we had a community. Our neighbors knew what was going on and everything. And, we're walking on pins and needles during this time. And I remember at 5:01, all of a sudden the neighbors' trash cans fell over. Someone's music went up. Another one started banging on something. There was just all this noise in our neighborhood.
It was like the 4th of July.
Oh, but better. But better.
Exactly, but better. Absolutely. Wow.
That's when our daughter was ours. There's no turning back.
Wow. That's amazing.
Of course.
Yeah, that's quite the moment to experience, especially having that much community involved around you with it.
We wouldn't have gotten through it without our community. In fact, I did kind of gloss over one. It was so important for us to have community. And one of the things our church, our pastor's wife actually put us in touch with 3 other couples going through similar circumstances. That's what kept us all going. Fast forward, we've got 4 families, 6 kids. My daughter's one of the bookends. The other gal is the upper bookend, and it goes from adoption to oops. And it's really, in fact, we were all on vacation together last weekend. So it's just a wonderful thing. But I don't know how we would have gotten through this process without that group of friends, without the people we met in the support groups scattered across the country, without the agency stepping in. I guess what I'm taking a long time to say is it takes a community. And what's important is to build that community to work out to be the family that you hope you're going to be.
Wow. Yeah, that's a powerful thought. It's a powerful thought. Well, I appreciate you coming on here and telling us this story, Sean. I know you got some time restrictions because you've got a kid that probably expects you to take care of her today.
In fact, I got to dash out her and pick her up from school.
I don't want to get you in trouble there. Ours have all made it home, so they're...
Yeah, now they're just worried about dinner. They want food.
They want food and video games.
Yeah,
right on. Thank you. I have got to run, literally.
All right, Sean. Well, I appreciate your time, man. We'll touch base with you again soon. thanks to everyone for listening all the way through. If you're trying to find us on a specific podcasting platform, just search for Jason and Amanda Palmer, or Foster Care, An Unparalleled Journey, and be sure to subscribe to the podcast. Leave us a rating and review on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, or anywhere where you find your podcast. You can also download it so that you can listen wherever you're at, even when you aren't online. You can find us online at jasonmpalmer.com, where you can read our blog and listen to all of our previous podcasts. If you have a story that you'd like to tell on the show, please send me an email at jasonmpalmer@yahoo.com. And be sure to put podcast in the subject line. Or send me a message through our Facebook page at Foster Care and Unparalleled Journey. We'll see you next time.